Hey, it's 8:33 here on Hot Talk 99.5. My friend Yaël Ossowski from the Consumer Choice Center is with us at consumerchoicecenter.org, the global grassroots movement for consumer choice. And taking a break from teaching his two little girls how to swim, he is spending some time with us here on the Hot Talk Morning Show with 90 minutes to go. Not like I'm counting or anything before we get to 10 o'clock, but don't forget we'll be over at Crooked Hammock Brewery enjoying some libations a little later on this evening, playing a little trivia. We'll spin some tracks for you. We've got some great prizes to give away. That's 8 to 10 tonight, Crooked Hammock Brewery, inside their tap room over in Barefoot Landing, North Myrtle Beach. Yaël, it's a pleasure, my friend. I know you enjoy a pint or two from time to time. So are you jealous? Have you got some FOMO this morning in terms of what I'm doing tonight?
I mean, absolutely. This is the thing about the Carolinas especially. It's just the craft brew market, the options that you guys have, the ability to buy them at all the stores, all the choices, the low taxes. I mean, it's something that I really do miss. So, yeah, I got a little case of the jellies today.
And we've got the Darlington Too Tough to Tame race, so your brother won't be too far away from our location either this weekend as well.
Yeah, this is a good time. One of the best races of the year. They call it Throwback Weekend for those of you who are into NASCAR. So normally people are sporting mustaches and they've got the old decals from all the age-old NASCAR stuff. So kind of a fun stuff. But it's always too late for me to watch anymore. This is kind of the problem with some of the races. People like their nighttime races now, so I don't often get to see them. I have to, watch it on YouTube.
Oh, I mean, you got to get nice and primed before you head inside to the track. I mean, it's just part of the game, Yaël.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing. Like, a lot of people talk about tailgating, football games and stuff. NASCAR races are just as insane, just as crazy. And most of the time, you can actually bring your cooler inside. So you can, go down to the brewery, pick up those drinks, pack them in, put in some ice, and actually carry them inside. It does make it one of America's greatest sports, got to tell you.
I mean, no doubt. Anytime it's BYOB to an entertaining event, whether it be a concert, a sporting event, a race, I mean, how could you not enjoy that? BYOB, yeah, I mean, that's insane that's still a thing here in the year 2024, right?
Yeah, and there are a lot of circumstances around the world. I remember from Canada and then parts of the Northeast and even down in Australia. Because the alcohol taxes are so high, the restaurants are like, well, crap, we don't want to pay that. We don't want to try to get the license. Why don't you guys just bring your own booze and bring it to the table? You got to pay your little corking fee. I'm sure you've paid that a couple of times, Joe. But it's like a very interesting thing where you got a BYOB to a dinner at a restaurant. I think that's just a kind of a great little switch.
No doubt. I enjoy those spots as well. Hey, Yaël, one of the things because I know originally, you were born north of the border. Your family, immigrated and migrated to the Charlotte area, and now you're in Europe. But I saw some crazy story about your home country and some regulation, a bunch of Karens out there that were shutting down parks because of dogs or something of that nature. Did that pop on your radar recently?
There's been a lot of different things. The same thing is actually happening over in the UK. There have been some incidents of people getting, bit by dogs, and they want to try to outlaw certain breeds, and they're trying to shut down different parts of the park so these dogs can go. I'm not a participant in the animal wars. I'm not a pet guy. But, it's definitely something that people care a lot about. It's not really my fight, but I think, hey, if you, as a consumer, as a person, you should have the right to have the animal of your choosing as long as it doesn't harm anybody. But, yeah, you've seen that brewing up in Vancouver, a little bit in Toronto. And in the UK, they had entire, protests against, it was like a Rottweiler ban and stuff like that. So they're getting very kind of crazy with that, but I know that down in Florida as well, I remember this, there was a bill basically stating that apartments would not be allowed to discriminate against certain dog breeds. I didn't know that there are a lot of pet legislators in the U.S., but it seems it's happening. Oh, yeah, just out in Florida, they passed the bill saying that apartment buildings cannot discriminate on dog breeds. So it's either up or down, dogs are allowed or not. So again, I don't know who the lobby is in the dog / pet industry, but I think they're going to have a lot of work in the next couple of years because pet policy, I tell you, Joe, it's coming to the table.
And in terms of some of the things that you've been following as of late, there was a international news story that came through the news cycle the other day surrounding the head of the social platform known as Telegram. I'm not really familiar with that platform. Don't know much about the backdrop of this entire story or the implications it has, in the long term as it relates to privacy and free speech. The only time I had an interaction with Telegram was this woman named Bella, or at least she claimed to be, and she said, "Let's talk," and then said, "Go to my Telegram," and then she sent me a voice message, and I'm like, "Yeah, sounds like a Ukrainian bot out there, maybe Russia," and that was about my familiarity with Telegram as I tried to get solicited by a scammer. I did not fall for that. The picture was cute, but that's about as far as I went.
Well, a lot to go on. So for Telegram, for people who don't know, it's an app. You can download it on your phone. And really during the pandemic, a lot of the social media sites were being forced by the government it was basically the Biden White House and different agencies of the government. We know this from the recent letter that Mark Zuckerberg sent over to the House Oversight Committee. But a lot of different social media websites were basically censoring posts and groups. And a lot of people flock to Telegram. And it's an app by a developer who's originally from Russia. His name is Pavel Durov. He fled Russia many years ago. He's kind of been bouncing all around, lives in Dubai. He's got multiple citizenships. And what it allows people to have is all these kind of big group chats where people are chatting back and forth, and they're not really going to censor. They don't censor. They don't really answer to any warrants by police officers. And essentially, it has grown. It's over like 1 billion users worldwide, and a lot of political actors and figures use it. I know Tucker Carlson has gone all in on it, many other people. And what happened is Pavel Durov flew into France, and then basically the French authorities arrested him because basically, according to French law, he does not censor enough. And they threw in a bunch of different charges as well related to that. But this is a kind of a big deal because this is a social media network that's not really on American soil. It's not really on European soil. It's kind of based in Dubai and out there in the ether. And this is kind of one of the first times we've actually seen French police arrest someone for running a social media network. So this is kind of a brave new world. I don't know where this will go. There's a lot of things to say about Telegram and all the rest, and there's a lot of crypto people on there, a lot of political folks. But it's definitely concerning that the French government would feel that they have the power to arrest someone for essentially running a website.
I mean, as you kind of highlighted, we have been dealing with this sort of stuff through our own very popular social platforms, as you highlighted with the Zuckerberg letter, which has not garnered a lot of coverage, by the way, by many in the news. Does that kind of surprise you that a lot of the bigger traditional news networks have essentially ignored that story?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. But it essentially confirms everything that even, Joe, we've talked about for years, is that you had all these government agencies, and actually one of them who is basically now the deputy campaign manager for Kamala Harris. He was the head of digital strategy for the Biden White House. He was the one sending the emails to Meta and to Twitter and all these different sites saying, hey, you need to censor that post. You need to take this down. Tucker Carlson's getting too much views. We got to take that down. He was the one actually asking all these social media companies to censor people, to shadow ban people, or block them. And Zuckerberg, after all this time said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. We got pressure from the White House. We got pressure from these agencies. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we capitulated. I'm sorry that we did that. It wasn't right. And when it comes to the Hunter Biden laptop story, much the same. And you haven't seen much coverage because much of the media was kind of complicit. But I tell you who wasn't is Joe Katz on this radio. You talked about it.
And that's what we do. We talk, about not necessarily, I guess alternative views. Like, why not ask a question? And what's wrong, right, with asking a question, surrounding something that could be so impactful, like losing your job or, having your life taken from you because you've been quarantined into your home by virtue of government mandates and lockdowns. I mean, shouldn't there be some sort of back and forth and exchange of ideas and debate when it comes to very draconian sort of ways in which they work to essentially isolate us and keep us away from any sort of level of normalcy that in some cases people are still having a hard time getting back into their groove some 2-3 years removed from all this.
Yeah, and I think what Telegram's arrest of the arrest of Durov shows us is that America is unique. We not only have the First Amendment, but we have Section 230. That means that if you have some kind of online platform, you are not liable for what people post or say on there. And that actually is a very freeing thing. It means that we can have free discussion and free debate online. And it means that we become essentially one of the freest beacons in the entire world. And I think we have to continue with that tradition. We have to hold that up. We have to try to stop the tradition that we've had in recent years of government agents reaching out to companies, telling them to censor this person or block that person. Rand Paul, who's the senator from Kentucky, has a bill out that would actually prevent the government from reaching out to any social media unless they have a warrant to tell them to censor people. I don't just, pump the tires of Rand Paul because he mentioned Consumer Choice Center when he put that bill out, but just to say that this is being looked at from a pro-freedom, a pro-consumer choice message in D.C., and I think this is overall very, very good. Radio is still something where we are free, as long as we follow, FCC dictates and the like, but, we need to have these different media for Americans to discuss, to debate openly.
Yaël Ossowski with the Consumer Choice Center with us here this morning. Again, you can find more about what they do, why they do it around the world at consumerchoicecenter.org. I know you joined our program months ago when we were talking about nuclear energy and some of the alternatives that folks are pushing towards. You've got this debate. Do we continue to drill for oil, natural gas? Should we look at the potential for smaller nuclear reactors that could provide very clean energy, efficient and affordable? Or is it the renewable approach when it comes to windmills and solar panels? And I bring that up because over in Georgetown County, our neighboring county, which we broadcast to, you've got residents up in arms about the number of solar farms that are popping up, all throughout their county, and the long-term sort of impact that's going to have, right? We want energy to be efficient and affordable and effective for all of us. We consume it and we rely on it in so many different ways. We need to beef up, our infrastructure as it relates, to the way we consume energy. But are we going too far down the road when it comes to, again, clear-cutting massive acres of trees in terms of trying to save the environment, although we're cutting all the trees down to put solar panels up so we can get energy from the sun?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, South Carolina is particularly a beast on this. More than 55% of all electricity generated in South Carolina is through nuclear energy, which means that the state of South Carolina is carbon neutral. And I think that bodes much better than trying to, put up these solar parks, because all of this is very wasteful. You don't have much employment of people who work on these things. You still have to import all the materials that come from China, a lot of these rare earth minerals, and that stuff is very costly. A lot of people are, still trying to suck up all the subsidies from the Inflation Reduction Act, which was passed by the federal government. But this is the kind of stuff that, is not going to be as, no matter how much sun you guys get down there in Myrtle Beach, you're just not going to have as reliable of energy as you can get from nuclear or even from natural gas. There's too much intermittent delay when it comes to solar energy. There are good opportunities, putting them on buildings, putting them over carports and the like. But if you're cutting down forest and trees and clearing space to install these things, that to me looks more like a play at subsidies and some kind of tax breaks and not necessarily the best way to get good, reliable, and cheap energy to South Carolinians.
Too, another aspect that no one talks about is that at the end of the day, 25, 30 years from now, these panels are going to come to the end of their life, and you're going to have to do something with those rare minerals in terms of disposing of them, which can lead to all sorts of environmental concerns, health impacts when it comes to what seeps into, say, our drinking water, and so on and so forth. It's uncertain as to what the future will hold, not only from a sustainability standpoint, but from the exact thing a lot of people are pushing for, from an environmental and health standpoint for us when these things are popping up everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't really know how we're going to be able to use these in the future, how we can recycle them. The lifespan of these different solar panels are not that long. Some of it is kind of cheap in terms of the technology. It's a lot of glass and a lot of those rare earth minerals we talked about. There's still a lot of stuff that's got to get done and figured out. And again, we should not put all of our time and money into this when we know we have a proven solution. South Carolina is proving that. And I think when we try to switch over to any kind of solar energy powerhouse, it's going to take a lot of money, it's going to take a lot of time, and we don't really have all the answers for how that energy will be used in the future, nor how those products are going to be recycled or used.
And we mentioned at the top that you were a little jealous, and we had a little FOMO because we're going to go drink some craft brew later on tonight at Hops and Hot Talk. But the one thing I'm a little jelly of when it comes to where you live is the fresh food, and just in general the food system that Europe has. You can eat a ton, you never feel like you're stuffed. When I go to Italy, it's just amazing how much I can consume and still feel good about myself rather than chowing down on, say, a boar's head meat sandwich, and then I might die because of listeria and because of the fact that it's loaded with all sorts of chemicals and preservatives. When you look at our food supply here in the United States as compared to what you have over in Europe, why should we be concerned as Americans when it comes to the big conglomerates that essentially have a monopoly over what we eat and what is out there in the marketplace?
Yeah, you definitely see that with a lot of the meat packers. There have been a lot of discussions about the kind of monopoly power of some of the meat packers, and they are working to strong arm a lot of American ranchers. We definitely have seen that out west. So I think there are a lot of questions there. I mean, presumably right now, the bigger problem is you've got from basically the big farm bill that goes out every single year, you have a lot of money that goes out in subsidies. So we subsidize certain crops over others. I mean, that's a whole Pandora's box when you look at the billions of dollars that are used that way, because we know that when you actually provide subsidies for something, you try to basically get rid of taxes for people, you're essentially going to make it more plentiful in the economy, but it also means that our tax bills are going to go up and we're going to have fewer choices when it comes to the grocery store. So there's, I think, a lot of questions that be looked at when it comes to subsidies. There's a lot of private companies that are doing things. I'm actually very grateful that in the States you can get bountiful choices. If you want to go to your Whole Foods, you can. If you want to go to Winn-Dixie or Piggly Wiggly or even the Walmart, you can get your food there too. So we do have those options, but I think we really got to look at these subsidies because there's a lot of it that goes to soybeans and corn and all different types of commodities and products that, again, might be helping a few farmers, people who vote early in the presidential elections, places like Iowa, but it's not really helpful to the consumers of South Carolina. And I think if we had more choices, people could make better decisions. We could eat better food. It's just about, consumer choice at the end of the day. If we have those options available to us, it means that we can eat better, our kids can eat better, and we can get, healthier overall.
Go to consumerchoicecenter.org if you want to learn more about what Yaël and his colleagues do as the global grassroots movement for consumer choice. Yaël, good stuff as always, and thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Joe. Enjoy that craft brewery.